All right, welcome everybody. I now call this meeting of the Law and Legislation Committee to order at 11:02 a.m. I'd like to welcome everyone back from our summer recess with my colleagues and the public. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll?
Certainly. I'd like to make... All right, Ephraim, there we go. Good morning. This meeting's being streamed live on YouTube with audio and captioning in English and Spanish. Captions and translation audio are generated using artificial intelligence and could cause errors. I will say it's pretty great so far, though. I'll start with the roll. Councilmember Dickinson? Here. Councilmember Pluckybaum? Councilmember Jennings? Here. Chair Maple?
I am here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. And with that, please rise if you are able. Please rise for the opening acknowledgments in honor of Sacramento's indigenous people and tribal lands. To the original people of this land, the Nisenan people, the Southern Maidu, Valley and Plains Miwok, Patwin Wintun peoples, and the people of the Wilton Rancheria, Sacramento's only federally recognized tribe. May we acknowledge and honor the Native people who came before us and still walk beside us today on these ancestral lands by choosing to gather today in the active practice of acknowledgement and appreciation for Sacramento's indigenous people's history, contributions, and lives. Remain standing, salute, and pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. And as always, if you'd like to speak on any of the items that we have before us today, you can find a QR code in the back?
Yes, we do.
I'll have our clerk explain it better than I will because I'm still learning this new technology.
So today we are introducing a new program for all of our meetings. We will have staff in our lobby to welcome you and greet you. You can sign in as soon as the meeting's published on our new website. You can sign in out in the lobby before you come in chambers. And Heather, who our regular speakers are familiar with, has more assistance down below. And we're just working, appreciate everyone bearing with us, but we do have a speaker in the queue for today.
Fabulous. And is that speaker for the consent calendar?
It's not, so that is for our first item, or we'll go to consent.
Well, I thank you, and I want to take a moment to really appreciate the clerk's office for their amazing work on bringing us into the newest of times with technology, making sure that we conform with the new state laws that have come down, and also in our efforts to just be more transparent and make it easier for people to engage with their government. And so we hope that this new technology will make it easier for you to provide public comment, whether that be in person or online, on the phone or on Zoom or whatever it may be. And so please do keep us informed. I think there's a lot that we're going to learn over the next days and weeks, and so we really want your feedback. So with that, we'll move on to the consent calendar.
Do you have a correction to read in at item 1? The recommendation is to approve minutes. It says April 12, but it should say May 12, 2026. And the attachment is correct, just the language in the agenda was a typo.
Okay, so noted. Do any colleagues, do you have any questions or comments or want to pull any items from consent?
Consent as amended.
Okay, we have a motion?
I will second that.
And a second. All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Any opposed or abstain? That passes unanimously. And then we'll move on to our first discussion item. We have item number 4, Councilmember Proposal Request for Committee Consideration, Update to the City's Sidewalk Repair Program. Do we have, I'm assuming Dickinson will be presenting. I'll pass it on over to you.
Sure, I'll just introduce this. I don't know that this requires a great deal of elaboration, but I see that all the high-ranking staff have shown up here, so we better say something about it. This is a proposal to take a look at the way in which we approach sidewalk repairs for residents in the city, and I'd note that it's offered by Councilmember Jennings and Mayor Pro Tem Guerra in addition to me. I think all of us as members of the council and probably the staff too have experienced instances when a resident has been identified as needing to fix the sidewalk in front of their house or business, And what it really requires now is that that sidewalk be replaced, which is not necessarily inexpensive, and for many people may be a stretch financially. So this proposal really is a simple one, and it is to look at other methods of addressing the need for sidewalk repairs by property owners, which could be grinding, it could be filling, it could be other things that are suitable and safe, but less costly. And so the request here is that the staff take a look at these alternative methods and any others they can identify, being experts at all of this, and then return to, I would say return to the council, but if the chair's desires to have them return to the committee, that's fine, I suppose, as well, with whatever the staff comes up with in their diligent research and recommendations.
And I see Councilmember Jennings.
Thank you very much. Great job on that presentation, Councilmember Dickinson. I totally agree with you that the sidewalk current method that we have for our sidewalk repair is expensive for some and happens at the wrong time as we go through our budgets and take a look at our resources. And I think we should look at other methods and what are the best practices that are working in other locations of the cities that look like Sacramento and see what we can learn from them. So I'm in favor of moving this forward. I'm in favor of listening to what the alternatives are to our current method. I'd like it to come back to this committee. I think it's that important that it come back to this committee first and then go to the full council once we all agree that this is the best thing that we can move forward as far as an alternative to the current method. And so I'm not trying to micromanage, I'm just trying to make sure that this is something that moves forward in a timely manner. I think it coming back here first will allow it to be timely and get it done so that we can take the burden that's on the current residents away from the residents, if possible.
And I'm amenable to that, so.
Did you make a motion, or?
I would move
You'd move it with the coming to Lawn Ledge first and then
directing the appropriate council point of officer to commence work on the proposed proposal and bring it back to the committee for review and consideration.
Fabulous.
And we do have a public speaker on this.
Okay. So with that, we'll take our public comment first, and then I'll have a couple questions, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, we have one speaker on this, Dan Pikowski.
Welcome.
Morning, Chair Maples, City Council members, Dan Piskowski. I was a Sacramento City Arborist for 30 years, retiring in 2020. The last 11 years I spent in the sidewalk repair program, doing the route inspections. I know how the program got developed today. Existing staff from director on down doesn't know all the minutia about how it did. But I'm glad you're bringing this forward because I've been working on this for a long time. In 2016, I approached the city auditor, no response. What I'm asking for, though, is we need oversight, outside oversight. And here's the reason is, when originally they did the paradigm shift, this is 15 years ago, city council mayor said, develop an alternative, grinding. So staff developed a grinding program, but it didn't work because they had this caveat. If you're repairing a sidewalk, if 3 panels can be ground and 2 have to be removed and replaced, it's a no-go, no grinding. So the grinding program, in fact, doesn't exist. Now, current city staff had an opportunity 2 years ago. In January of 2024, there was a Sacramento Bee article. It was about that and how less affluent neighborhoods are getting hit. They had an opportunity right then and there to save people thousands of dollars. A 5x5 panel is like $500. You grind it, you're going to save like $400. They could have said, okay, if 2 of the panels qualify for grinding and 3 are removed and replaced, we're going to do the grinding on the 2 and the other ones. But they didn't. And that's why I think when we're moving forward with this program, we need outside oversight. Because I don't have enough time to go into everything, but I was there when the program was developed, and I know why it was developed. So I'm applauding you for finally addressing this, because this is something that's been on my plate for a long time. I've been retired six years, but I've been working on this. And so thank you, Jennings, Dickinson, and Councilman Guerra for doing this.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate that. Any other public comments?
No, ma'am.
Okay. With that, maybe I'll have someone from our illustrious staff come up. Over. And while you come up, I will just say that I'm also very grateful that the council members are bringing this forward. Without a doubt, this is one of the things that we hear about the most from our constituents in my district. I'm sure I am not alone, in the other districts as well. And as someone who lives on a corner lot, I can tell you I live in fear of the day when I may have to do this myself and potentially be on the hook for thousands and thousands of dollars. It's a big challenge for a lot of residents, especially if you're on a fixed income, you're a senior, young person, you're any normal person that's trying to raise their family. It's really, really hard to figure out how to come up with that kind of money. And so I think thinking creatively about how we can use different kinds of materials or processes is a worthy goal. And so I guess my question is, has there been kind of any initial research on the staff side about different types of materials, or would this be kicking off kind of a new process for you to look into that, what's happening in other cities and other types of materials and processes?
Yeah, I think, good afternoon, Matt Ironman, Director of Public Works. I think that we're definitely very open to different methodologies of how we repair sidewalks, right? Being in the seat for 3 years, I get calls weekly on how people are affected by our, letters that they receive, or if people cannot afford them, that, their homes are liened. And so I think there are different methodologies that we could put into place. I think the thing that we need to consider as we move along this is that if there's a root cause, no pun intended, on why the damage is happening, we need to repair the sidewalk to get to a level for the people that are using the sidewalk, right? And make sure that it's ADA compliant, make sure that it meets a standard that we're all going to be happy with, right? So I think at certain points, we all need to agree what level of risk we're okay with, because once we become aware of this defect in the city sidewalk, it becomes our issue, and who's going to inspect it 3 years down the road, 4 years down the road. There are many times that we've applied patches, temporary patches, where those patches just don't adhere, or you change the molecular structure of the concrete and it just gets brittle and causes, it to. So we're using the highest level of standard at this point in time, and we're open to taking a look at any alternative modes and apply those.
Okay, great. That's really helpful. That'll be it for me for questions. I just wanted to know if we had any work underway. I will say, if it's okay with the motioner and the seconder, I was really interested in the grinding program component. It's not something I was aware of, so maybe if we can make sure that's included as a part of the work that's done, is if there need to be any updates to that program that we already have. I don't think it needs to be additional language in the motion, just if you're okay with that direction. Okay.
Yeah, if I may, Chair, I think that it makes sense to look around, see what other jurisdictions are doing. The tree uprooting the sidewalk raises a potential another issue if it's a city tree, or if the city required the tree to be planted in the first place, and then it uproots the sidewalk, and we tell the property owner you have to pay for replacing the sidewalk, when that problem, to the extent it's a problem, was created by the city requiring or actually planting the tree in the first place. So there are those. That's not every situation. There are those situations. So, but I think what Matt you're talking about makes sense. I think it's really having flexibility and applying the right solution in the right circumstances. The only other thing I would say is I'm certainly expecting this to come back within 40 days.
45, 46.
No, I can count, Matt.
Is that the next lunch?
Okay, that's not part of the motion, though.
I think we'll,
He's referring to my retirement. He would like me to show up before then, so. At that point, I'd be
you're
open
always
to-
welcome even after retirement, you know? You don't need to hang it up.
Yeah, I mean, we have people that retire to come here all the time and speak, so.
Oh, I love that. Okay, seeing no other comments from members or the public, we have a motion and a second. So all those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed or abstain? Okay, that passes unanimously. That will head to the staff for their diligent work and then back to Law and Ledge before the full council. Now we move on to our next item, our update on budget activity. And just so folks know, I've been working with our amazing government affairs director on ensuring that the work that's happening in the state capitol comes back here. And so the public can hear about what's happening with the budget, they can hear about what's happening with our legislative strategy. And so this is just part of that effort to make the public aware. So with that, I'll pass it on over to Consuelo.
Great, thank you. Consuelo Hernandez, Director of Governmental Affairs, and I'm pleased to provide, as the chair mentioned, a summary of what has passed thus far for the 26-27 state budget. I will caveat this with there will be additional budget activity happening next month, but here's where we are so far. The budget was signed by the governor on the 29th, with some additional budget trailer bills being signed afterwards. The budget deal came in at a little over almost $352 billion. It balances this year's budget, next year's budget, and should reduce the structural deficit all the way out into fiscal year 29-30 to about $8.4 billion. So that is a major accomplishment. It also increased or maintained $28.8 billion in reserve accounts, placed a rainy day fund revision initiative on the November ballot, and set aside an additional $6.4 billion in a temporary holding account to balance the fiscal year 27-28 budget. So the governor made it very clear that he wanted to leave the state in a good fiscal situation. So here are the highlights for the city. Homelessness, this is probably the biggest one for us. HAP 7 funding was included in the budget at $900 million. The cities, big city mayors were advocating for their usual $1 billion. The governor had said that he was looking at $500 million. We ended up at $900. I think we got the better part of that negotiation. There is a housing trailer bill that was signed, AB 179. It does have some new accountability requirements for jurisdictions that directly receive HAP funding, which includes us. Good news, we don't have to submit a new application to access HAP 7. I believe the HAP 6 will work to receive that disbursement. Cities that receive direct allocations, again, us, must obtain a pro-housing designation, so not a problem for us, and meet a 35% match requirement. There was some flexibility added in terms of what meets the match requirement, and I believe I've discussed this with staff, and it sounds like we should be fine. Let's see, housing, community, and economic development. The budget provides $500 million for low-income housing tax credit, $200 million for the multifamily housing program, $7 million for the infill infrastructure grant program, which supports additional infrastructure for new housing projects, which is a key issue for the city. It also creates a $100 million disaster rebuilding fund to assist homeowners who were impacted by disasters. Again, AB 179, the housing trailer bill, seeks to incentivize local governments to waive, limit, or defer impact fees for affordable housing. The governor came out with a bigger bite at the apple. We eventually ended up with cities that are lead or co-applicants for housing projects that receive state funding Before, he was asking that the city's limit waive defer impact fees. Instead, their funding awards will be reduced by the amount of impact fees that they're charged for the project. So, you know, I think we need to do a little analysis to see how often we would be put in this situation and what the impact would be. As we all know, these impact fees aren't just revenue generators. They go to pay for actual infrastructure, other needs. Let's see, immigration. We've talked a lot about immigration, the need for legal services, and the budget did include a total of $175 million for immigrant legal services, which is wonderful. I know that in our budget situation, we prioritize providing additional funding to the fuel network, and it's always wonderful when they have additional resources to tap. There are a few key outstanding issues that we expect to have discussed and hopefully decided on in August before the legislature adjourns at the end of the month. Funding allocation for Prop 4. Prop 4 is the $10 billion climate resilience bond, and it funds projects like safe drinking water and wildfire and flood protection. So they need to figure out how to divvy that up. The cap and invest reallocation. So for those of you who are following, CARB, the State Air Resources Board, limited, they reallocated some funding, reprioritized, and limited the available funding for what's referred to as Tier 3 projects, and these are the ones, honestly, which are most important to the city. They include climate, transportation, housing, environmental work. This did not sit well with many in the legislature, and there have been ongoing discussions about how to address this, maybe provide additional funding, maybe pass some legislation or work with the governor to reallocate the reallocation. We're also hearing that there may be an effort to rework SB 54, which is the state's packaging law, which was passed in 2022. There is a concern that the law will raise the cost for farmers, food producers, businesses, and consumers, so that we may see some kind of deal in that area. Also want to be sure to mention that we do have a couple ballot initiatives that could affect funding for city priorities or impact the state budget. Prop 1 is the Veterans and Affordable Housing Bond Act, so more money we can get for affordable housing, the better. And then Prop 43, which was the Howard Jarvis Compromise, that prohibits local governments from imposing special taxes unless approved by 2/3 of the electorate. Interestingly, again, this was a compromise. It was a more draconian measure that had qualified for the ballot. This legislation was passed to place this item on the ballot, and the author of that legislation has asked people not to vote for it. So she said, hey, we put it here because it's better, it's still not good. So that's what I have thus far. I am happy to take any questions.
Do you have any public comment on this item?
No, ma'am.
Seeing none. Colleagues, questions? Councilmember Dickinson.
Thanks, Chair. I wanted to just highlight a couple things that I think we would be wise to be as much at the center of as possible, and you mentioned a couple of them, Consuelo. First of all, the Prop 4 allocations, and particularly those for local parks, for urban greening, the categories that are in Prop 4. I think we could take significant advantage of. Certainly, I think there's community garden money, if I recall, in Prop 4 as well. So there are a number of things that could apply to efforts that a lot of us are trying to make here in the city. So as much as we can be a part of those conversations, I think that would be smart. Secondly, with respect to cap and invest, we've already engaged, and thanks for the letter that you put together earlier in the session on that. But I understand the governor's interest in trying to help electricity ratepayers receive some relief. But this allocation, aside from any question about whether it fits under Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund guidelines, aside from that, there's not much relief here when you slice it down to the individual ratepayer. And I just wonder whether there isn't a different approach, not using cap and invest money, that could be applied to give ratepayers some relief without using the cap and invest funds to do that. So maybe that analysis has been done by the administration, and this is what they settled on as the best alternative. But it puts at jeopardy, particularly public transit and other very important community efforts, community-wide efforts across the state, in favor of, as I said a moment ago, very little in the way of actual relief to the ratepayers. So I'd be interested in some approach that gave some more meaningful relief to the ratepayers, but didn't do it at the expense of these community investments, which fit much more directly within the scope of cap and invest. So I think really to the extent that we can, again, be engaged in those discussions, I think it'd be smart. And I also think that we as council members are resources for you in talking to our state legislators and administration members and others. We're lucky enough to be here in Sacramento. We should take advantage of that in these kinds of instances as well. The other thing that just administratively, you gave us a list of the position letters, but not the status of the legislation. And so if in the future, and I think you have in the past,
Yeah.
listed the status, but on this list there was not the status. So if you could make sure to do that.
Yep, I'm happy to add that in.
That also would be helpful. Seems to me there was one more thing I was thinking about with your presentation, but it escapes me at the moment, so I'll let someone talk and maybe it'll come back to me.
All right, thank you. Yeah, and I think those are some great points. Definitely interested on the cap and invest side and some creative options, and I really appreciate the work that you did leading up to sending the letter, and especially last minute. I know it was a last minute request, so thank you. Did you have another, you punched up again? No, okay, I'll remove you. Any other questions or comments from my colleagues on this? Seeing none. I just want to say thank you for the presentation. It was really helpful. It's helpful for me and all of us, but also for the public to know all the great work that's happening, not just here at City Hall, but across the street at the Capitol, and that we are really, really actively engaged. We're not just sitting by watching what's happening over in the state capitol. We have our lobbyists, we have amazing staff that are actively engaged every single day on the work that's happening there, and they do seek our help and guidance on a regular basis, and I think that's really important for the people to know. And I'm super interested, maybe this can happen in the future, maybe we won't have time before November, but obviously we have quite a few ballot measures that are anticipated to be on the November ballot. So maybe at some point before November, we can either just put a written report in or something about what those are so the public can read and find out more information about what to expect on the ballot. Okay, with that, we will move on to committee questions, ideas, comments, reports. Anything from my colleagues? Seeing none. Do we have any public comment not on the agenda? No, ma'am. All right. So with that, this very efficient meeting is concluded at 11:31 a.m. We are adjourned.